Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Mad Cap with this another video on Raid Shadow Legends and another in our series that I built them so you don't have to. Before we get into the main part of the video, it's time to pick the 540 gem winner from the video that was a few days ago. It was the December Champion Rebalance 540 gem giveaway. 5 lucky winners are going to get that here today. So let's do this right now in front of all of you. There is the YouTube link, and then we're going to filter duplicate users. We're going to include replies just in case someone replied to someone, would put it in there. We exclude block. Oh no, we don't have to. No, we don't do that. And then filter based on having that. I mean, I guess someone says we might get it in there, but we can just void that. It has to have the code. That is the important thing. Remove winner after the draw. And go random, I'm sure. 1 plus 1. Is that? I can't see that. Oops. Oh, that's supposed to be a plus. Sorry, can't read that. There we go. All right, 49. You have a 1 in 49, 5 in 49 chance of winning. So let's start here. Let me get up my trusty notepad so I can scribble down the winners here. Good luck to everyone. Notepad. There we go. All right, let's go. First winner. Let's start. Can you see that? Everyone can see that? Good. First winner, Sean McAllister for Pixneal. Definitely be a lot more usable. Still needs to check out the entire library in order to get a yes. For Bellinar, change can actually change a lot of people. I agree. Well, I don't think they're going to modify AoE quite a bit there. So, and I think his DPS is going to be higher because he's no longer using that A1 when using his A4. He's using his A3. So yes, his AoE multipliers will probably go down, but I think he'll be a net 0. But thank you very much for your comment. And winner number 1, copy there. Boom. Sean McAllister. We'll pin that to the other video. And that's winner number 1. Let's pick another winner now. Winner number 2, Shane Lassie. I'm going to take Pixneal out of the vault. Could be a great Torment counter in Doom Tower. That's a good point. I always talk from terms for Arena, and I think it's very underwhelming in Arena, but absolutely. Those Torment, if you're doing Arena and Doom Tower and countering, that's a very good point. Good job, Shane. And congratulations for your 540 gems. And I believe it's a ancient shard or a void shard. It's 540 gems and a shard. I can't even remember which one. And I could look it up, but then the video would be 30 minutes long. Number 3, Bubster 3. Oh, that's interesting. All the champs are better now. Depends on your count of how much difference it will make. That is 100% true. And congratulations. I don't think there's a bad one in the bunch here. I think there's some that are more and less effective in the grand scheme, but I think all of the changes were better than they were before. 100%. And some of the best changes are probably on the champions that will be least impactful, like Pixneal and Crypt Witch, because they probably aren't needed, even though the changes are quite significant and make them a much better champion. So that's 3 winners. Oh, I forgot to put your name. Yeah, no, I put your name down. Okay, winner number 4. Nick Byington. Great beard. Great effing beard. Crypt Witch is the best out of all of them. Well, I mean, it's not untrue. You're not untrue, Nick. All right. Boom. Winner number 4. Congratulations. Put you in there. Why is there a space there? Good job, Nick. Nick. Byington. Good. And winner number 5 and the last winner of the bunch goes to Practical Solutions. Copy. Boom. Aliko is my first epic champ. I fully booked her. 20 books. Don't regret it because she helped me progress immediately. Pulled a dupe of her a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure how much the change for A3 cooldown will help, but I'm not complaining. So the cooldown will help because before it was a 1-turn cooldown. And what happens is the cooldown is dropped by a turn before the champion takes their turn. So effectively it did nothing at all, unless it was already on cooldown. And the reason is if their cooldown was on 0 and then you put it to 1, it would go back to 0, and it would still be usable before their turn. But if it was 4, like the cooldown was 4, and then it went up to 5, then it would be back to 4. It's almost like they missed a cooldown round. But it was only on the actual 1 cooldown to 0 that it was ineffective. But it's exactly like Bashers, where it's a 2-turn cooldown, which is an effective 1-turn cooldown. That's why it's going to be a big deal. It's gonna give more opportunity to use her, because Alika's already so good as a nuker, but you can now build her out to be a speed, cool, like a warlord, a budget warlord, but a budget warlord that can delete people as well. So I'm curious to see how much it's going to be used, but I think she's going to have a great use. I'm going to use her in 3v3 probably now, and I certainly didn't before as much as I do like her. So I am curious too to see how this plays out. And congratulations to all the winners again: Sean McAllister, Shane Lacey, Bubster3, Nick Binton, and Practical Solutions. Congratulations. Your 540 gems will arrive on or about the 10th of the month, I believe. So within a week's time, give or take. It's all automated through Plarium, so it'll show up directly on your account one day. Congratulations. Now, so there you go. Congratulations to the winners. Now we're going to talk about the Epic Champion, who is the recent fusion that I actually pulled. I didn't have to do the fusion. Hoskarul, the Barbarian Spirit Affinity Epic. We're going to take him into several different places, test him out, see if he's worth doing it. So far, I built him, so you don't have to. Here it is, Hoskarul. Sustained Beating. Attacks all enemies. Has a 50%, bookable to 75% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. Decreases the turn meters of enemies under stun debuffs by 15%. Hermit Cudgel. Attacks 1 enemy. Has a 30%, bookable to 40% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. Unphase. Removes all stun debuffs from all allies, then places a 60% increased defense buff and a 25% increased resistance buff on all allies for 2 turns. Finish the Foe. Passive. Immune to stun debuffs. Increases the damage inflicted by all allies by 15% when attacking enemies under stun debuffs. All right, there's our first look at Hoskarul. He is, as I said, a Spirit Affinity Epic Barbarian. We built him out. Okay, so I built him out to do damage first for testing. Full disclosure, I don't think this is the best way to build him out, but we're going to do him in 3 different ways because I believe he's got 3 different abilities for usage in this game, which makes use of his different attributes of his kit. But let's show you how he is built the first way, and we're going to take him into some damage testing before rebuilding him. So the first way here, we have him at 277 crit damage, 5,000 defense. He's a defense-based champion at 100% crit rate, 247 accuracy, and 190 speed. As far as his masters, again, not how I would build him, but for this testing, we took him down War Master, gave him some of the big hits, and then we did take him down defense route, so we got the extra defense, we got the AoE, and then we did use him Selfless Defender, let him take some of the damage and retribution, as well as things like delay, death, and such. You can see here, let me move over, you see that over there. And while I don't think this is how you should build him, we should at least understand what kind of damage his AoE can do and his A1, and we'll go from there. So next, let's take him into some damage testing. All right, so here we are. I've got a wide array of champions to test with. We've brought in Solus, which is kind of I would say the hardest. I think there's a couple, but he's one of, if not still the hardest hitting defensive-based champion in the game. And a couple of Spirit Affinity champions to test. Errol, you know what? I'm going to bring him in just so we can see the kind of damage he can do. There was a comment on the last video that I was unfair because I didn't show his A3 on that one. I've made a video on him, but we'll show his A3 on this one just so you get an idea. But let's show you the stats of the 4 champions again. We've already seen Hoskarul, so we'll show you. Solus is sitting at 5890, 254 crit damage. Crit cap, very slow. I don't currently use him often, but I do use him in the Night Rev dungeon, so I usually have him a little bit faster, so I might have to retool that. I think I've stolen some gear. So Finax, We have 269 crit damage, 4872 attack, and I actually currently have him more for attack than I have for actually landing his debuffs. And we're going to test that AoE, and of course that A1. His AoE is not as hard as hitting. These two are actually harder hitting as single targets, and really what makes a big difference on him. If you take a look here, oh, it doesn't say. Okay, what am I doing? Okay, the third one, Knight Errant. We've got 271 crit damage, 5451 crit capped, obviously. And I think it's only fair to show you, we do have obviously Savage on our main boy. We also have Savage here on Solus. And then we have on the other two, let's get to them. Errol has crit damage gear with only 3 pieces. I couldn't find a good, anyway, whatever. Don't at me. That's the Hell Hades Optimizer loves doing that to me. And we have a Cruel, but we don't have any Savage here. So there will be some differences just based on that Savage piece. And Phoenix is a little bit low on his attack right now. But it should give you a kind of a roundabout idea on what we're doing with Hoskarul. Like I said, this is not how I would build him. But if you need to understand what kind of damage he's going to do for you, it's good to at least understand and know that. So we're going to use his AoE right away. Remember, this is a self-increased defense. So this will actually improve his damage. And will improve all defensive-based champions' damage. But because we're testing Solus as well, it's just as good just to show you kind of what we're getting here. Now, the good news is you got like three stuns out of that. And that's kind of a big deal. And then there's your AoE from him. We'll let you hit their 111 single, and then we'll show you the big boy, and that's obviously a big difference in damage. And this is just to show you, look, he can do damage. 253. He out damaged Phoenix, which I expected him to, right? Knight Errant hit quite big on a single target, but Hoskarul, great OA. But yeah, like I get it. Solus had extra defense. But Hoskarul had some extra crit damage, but look at the difference. It's over double the damage, and that the stats alone don't talk that. Solus just has next level damage, and it's just also to show you that Hoskarul is not a budget Solus. He's not there to hit hard. Usually, if a guy has a self buff with no sort of attack based on it, or no extra turn or no nothing, he's typically not meant to be a damage dealer. And I think this goes to show he can do, that's decent damage. You saw him in the campaign hitting for 60s. It's not awful damage, but that's not probably what you're going to be there to build him for. And he's only got 1 star, so he didn't get any extra damage out of the this thing. Is just to a chance to ignore being provoked, frozen, or slept. Obviously, he has a stun immunity as part of his passive. So let's go one more time, just for giggles, and show you what they can do with the single targets. Again, just to make sure you get what's going on here as far as his damage capabilities, and then we'll take him to places that I honestly think he's most suited. 47,000, pretty good. You're gonna see Phoenix is gonna hit twice for 80,000. You've got Knight Errant there, 57's hitting harder. Solus is A1, 41,000. Actually hit a little bit later, so you can see the multiplier on Hoskarul's is actually higher, and there you go. They both proc the War Master proc, and Solus still got outbeat on the A1. So good to note. But Phoenix just doubling up, and even Knight Errant is right in that same wheelhouse. So yeah, Hoskarul can do some damage. It's good to note, but probably not the way you're going to build him. So next, let's take him into a situation where I think makes use of. We're going to do 2 different situations for him. One, we're going to build him out to make use for his stun abilities, and we'll talk about that. And then we're going to make use of that increased resistance ability with him. So let me rebuild him out, and we'll be right back. All right, the first way that I see a champion like this able to be used, and I think we'll switch this up a bit here, is in something like this, where you're going through, you know you're not going to one-shot, so you want that opportunity for some survivability. And this is where we're going to make use of all these different stun abilities. So what we've done, or what I've done, is I've sped him up, and I put him in protection gear, which is going to help that resistance. This is just one example of where the resistance will also be helpful. But the big thing is to get those stuns out, get that crowd control going. So you see now we've given a little bit more HP, we sacrificed a bit of defense, but it's a lot of speed now, and we still have good accuracy for this. Where you're using them depends on how high that accuracy has to be for those stuns, obviously. You can extrapolate this to the Doom Tower if you need to, or wherever you might want to take them. We put them in protection gear because those buffs are pretty good buffs, and it's going to be good to have them. So in this case, I'm not going to run it in auto because I'd like to talk through, because there's different ways you can run him, obviously. Also, this guy could be very good for seer comps because you've got two typically unused buffs here, right? So, and then you see that he actually protected one. Well, he only got one, but that's always a good thing too. And then I think this is the all enemy, right? Yeah, there we go. Boom. And then we're going to add a layer of protection. Look at all those buffs that could be eaten if you had a seer in this comp, right? So now we'll put it on auto. Now he's going to stun, so it's just going to reduce the amount of incoming damage. It's just an opportunity to kind of help you get through this fight as good as possible, or as quickly as, I wouldn't say as quickly as possible. This isn't the most quick method. This is the safest method, but definitely another option for this would be to use his buffs as something that Seer could eat if you have a Seer comp, and then the purpose here of having that increased resistance is to resist the freeze that you can potentially get from the boss on this level. So absolutely usable in multiple areas. Here you got perfect stun. We landed the stun on both those pesky beasts that always get you into trouble. Keep in mind I didn't bring in a decreased defense. I probably should have. That's my stupidity. Slowing this down a bit, but just to give you an idea of kind of where I think that he would be useful in the day-to-day, right? It's just that crowd control. Even though it's 75%, it's still very impactful. That's an average. If you're getting 3 or 4 per, and you're holding out, in this case we got lucky with both of them, but say we didn't, then you can just quickly, if you need to, target the beasts or whoever didn't get stunned to make it work. Now with these, you see all these extra buffs on here. Bam, he landed the stun on both these guys. It's just, again, all about that survivability quotient, and allowing the 2 damage dealers now on the boss, which of course is Dark Kale and Bad Alcazar, to do their thing, which is to land those poisons. He's just dropping the stuns. He's keeping us alive. You're going to see here with that increased resistance, even if Brogni didn't have that block, you probably would be enough. Now, keep in mind, it's 25%, not the big one. It is the 25% one, so you're going to need more resistance than you would otherwise, but still less resistance than without this champion. And because he's one of the few champions, we're going to take him into one more place where we're actually going to make use of that increased resistance to hopefully help us better tune for a particular boss, and we'll show you that in a minute here. As soon as we get this, should be just about done now. Get him, Tiger. Get more poisons. You gotta let him take his turns. Oh, there, he's nearly dead. Now let's go get him. Exactly. Go for the throat. No, never in doubt. I mean, I put in Brogni. Was probably overkill, but I think you get the idea of just 2 things: either eat great food for your seer, or adversely, you're going to have a defensive-based champion that's going to be around. He still did 971k damage. He wasn't a passenger for sure, and was able to do that increased resistance, which means you're not going to take those debuffs against that boss. So in this case, Under Priest Brogni also did that with the block. But I'm going to now change him out again. We're going to try him in somewhere slightly different. I'm going to show you where I think he might be useful as well. All right, so here's kind of scenario number 2 for him, and this is where we're not using him for his stuns. We're actually using him for that increased resistance. It is a 25%, and I didn't fine tune this whole team. I didn't want to spend a whole bunch of silver, but you're gonna, I think, understand the theory here is we are going for keeping this increased resistance up at all times. We're even putting him in the boost lead position so that he can continually keep that up and cycle turns better than anyone. And we also brought in Godseeker. You see already a resist. Then we're going to be able to increase that by 1 turn. That's going to give us more of the turns as merrier. We're also going to be able to do some good damage out of him. He's going to get some good damage out of that lead position. We don't have a taunt, unfortunately, I just realized. But that's okay. We're just going to keep going on. We're going to resist these things. So this is our opportunity here to put into a kind of a resist mode team, to be able to constantly use him in order to ensure our survival and not steal buffs and all that stuff. And on top of it, we're going to get some good damage, I think, out of it. He's still able to do some decent damage. You see, again, that resist is happening very nicely, which is exactly what we want, right? And we want him to be able to cycle back on these turns, which he's going to get back to right away here. And then we'll stop. I'm not going to do a whole Hydra key. but I just want to show you the way that he is absolutely a strength of his. Well, okay, well, he's got one turn out without it, I guess, but it doesn't really matter. He can't steal anything from him right now anyway, and he'll be right back there in a second. So. Right, and it's more than just the stealing of the buffs. I think that's important to note as well. It's nice that we're able to have that extra resistance so that he's not able to steal the buffs on us. And if I tuned, I would probably want Godseeker about 30 speed faster, so she's right next to him. But it all works in tandem, right? It's funny how they all got weakened from the. He must have the super. And again, it's just about like a good damage here, right? We're not going to keep the key. But you see, that's where I think he can be used. And you can probably use him in the Iron Twins as well to get some of your... If you're trying to get at least your core supports, which is what I do. So I have a Demetha, I have a Mithrala, and I have a Duchess, all with very high resistance. And this just makes it easier so they don't get those stacks on them, so they stay alive. And I could probably, with him, add a high resist Geomancer to that list, and that will just keep them all alive longer, which means they're going to be up. They're not going to get these big stacks on them, and they're going to be able to do their job. So, Hoskarul, my final thoughts. Look, this is a champion that was relatively easy to get. I did pull him in shards, but you may have likely got him in the fusion. He's a decent champ. He's going to be able to help you in many different areas of the game, kind of push you in past the mid game. I do have a little bit of concerns about having that, it being the baby increased resistance. I'm not a huge fan of that, especially seeing how few of the increased resist are out there. But again, think of it this way: if you have a 400 resist, which I think a lot of people can get to 400, but getting a full team to 500, that's really difficult. So if this gets you to 500 just by having it there and having a buff extender with him, whether it's Godseeker or Neri, whether it's maybe you got a Krisk, maybe you got a Demetha, all these champions can help. Hey, a Hope can help. There's a lot of different champions that are able to do that for you. And in tandem, they can really push that narrative forward to increase the resistance. Also, I think, and this is probably where most people will be using him, is just that ability to abuse the enemy with stuns. Be able to lock out people, and keep it in mind that the damage inflicted by all allies are increased by 15% when attacking enemies under stun debuff. So you can also use this in tandem with another stun champion, right? He doesn't have to even be there to do the stuns. You could use a champion like Astralon, who puts down the stuns, and Hoskarul is there for the increased resistance, but the net result is you're getting extra damage against the champions in waves that are stunned. And I think that's useful, and I think that makes him a strong champion for survivability. I think he's going to be really strong in dungeons, especially if you need champions and you don't quite have the resistance to be able to do it on their own to survive. For example, the dragon's poisons, the dragon's stun, the ice golem's freeze, the Fire Knight has a slow, right? All these sort of things. I think that's where he's going to be in his wheelhouse. I think you can also use him in Hydra if you need that extra push to get there. Where I caution you is, because it's a 4-turn cooldown on a 2-turn, even with a buff extension, you have to be really cognizant of how you use him to keep that increased resistance up. We were able to show him a little bit in the Hydra where that's going to be possible, putting him as the lead with that boost because of the head of Torment. But you may not always have that opportunity, in which case there may be a round where it's down, and just making sure that all your buffs fall off at the same time, so the Head of Mischief isn't stealing buffs and making your day a nightmare. Also keep in mind that increased resistance, 3% chance to steal that puppy, is going to ruin your day if now all of them have a 2-turn increased resistance and you're trying to taunt the Head of Decay, for example. So there are drawbacks to this strategy in somewhere like the Hydra. Also in the Hydra, you're not making use of the stuns. So really, I feel like his wheelhouse is going to be dungeon levels 21 through 25, helping with progression on those that aren't yet there. I think that's where he is at his best. Other than that, obviously, if you need help in faction crypts, that 30% defense in faction crypts, he does decent damage, and his crowd control is pretty strong. So overall, I think it's a champion that's going to help a lot of people. I do not believe he is an endgame champion. That increased resistance, if it was the big one, I think would make this a game changer. Or if it was at a 3-turn cooldown, so we were able to use stats elsewhere to kind of relieve some of that difference between the cooldown and the resistance. But when you're getting a baby resistance, so you pretty much have to have a high level of resistance to make use of the extra 25%. And on top of it, you need a buff extender and a smart mechanic to be able to get that on 100% or near 100% uptime. Overall, I think he's a buildable champion for a lot of you. Some of you probably not, but honestly, for those of you who can't use something like Hoskarul, you're probably not looking at many epics at all in the game. You probably A, already have them, or B, don't care because you have all the legendaries. So I think for the person that this champion is targeted for, I think is a great and solid opportunity for you to do well in faction wars, in early game, lower end Doom Tower, even mid to high progression Doom Tower progression dungeons, and of course even in Hydra. So those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments down below. But in the meantime, of course, as always, I want to thank you for watching the video. Please be kind, be safe. Congratulations to the winners of the gems, and we'll see you in the next one.